I saw one of the strangest book discussions I've seen in a very long time, and considering this is the internet, that's actually quite an achievement. Here's your trophy, round of applause, right? The post basically said, "Dear authors, please use easier words in your books. Thank you, truly readers." Now, I don't know who picked this person as the spokesperson for every reader on the planet, but apparently that's where we're up now. And the reason they were upset? They had to Google a word. That's it. The word was scrying. Not some impossibly obscure 19th century term only found in the diary of a Victorian lighthouse keeper. Scrying. A word that has been in fantasy novels for God knows how long. A word that has appeared in TV shows, films, video games, tabletop games, and probably several episodes of something involving wizards. And here's the thing that makes this discussion absolutely hilarious. The person complaining did exactly what you're supposed to do. They looked up the word. Congratulations, problem solved. Here's your trophy and here's a certificate. You learnt a new word. That's literally how reading works. I don't know when we started treating every moment of confusion as a problem that needed fixing. Sometimes you don't know something. That's perfectly normal. It's healthy, even. I've been reading most, if not all, of my life, and I still encounter words I don't know. Sometimes, well, hell with it, I encounter historical references I don't know, places I've never been or heard of, cultural references, religious concepts, scientific terms. And my first reaction isn't usually authors need to stop using these words. My reaction is usually, oh, that's interesting. Then I spend 20 seconds looking something up. Now I know something I didn't know before. Amazing. The system works. What worries me about the discussion isn't really the original post, because let's be real, social media rewards people for saying ridiculous and stupid things all the time. You can post almost anything online if you phrase it confidently enough. What worries me is how often we see this attitude now that reading should never require effort. The book should always be instantly understandable, that every sentence should be immediately accessible, that every word should be familiar. At what point does it stop being reading? Because reading isn't just consuming. It's engagement, it's participation, it's curiosity. You're bringing something to the experience. You're meeting the book halfway. If every single unknown word has to be removed, if every challenging phrase has to disappear, if every unusual expression has to be simplified, what exactly are we left with? Because words exist for a reason. We don't have thousands upon thousands of words in the English language by accident. Different words communicate different things. They have different histories, meaning, shades of meaning, emotional weight. The right word matters, and writers spend ages choosing those right words. And now apparently we're asking them to use the simplest possible version of everything because someone might not know it, and that just seems completely and utterly backwards to me. Backward thinking is never a good thing. Especially when we live in the easiest time in human history to learn what a word means. People act as if we're living in some dark age where the answer is locked away in a library up a mountain guarded by monks. You've got a phone, you've got a smart device. You can literally ask your smart devices what words mean, or Google the word on your phone. You're carrying access to more information than entire generations have had available to them. You can find out what a word means in seconds. The person making the complaint literally demonstrated this. Googled it, found the answer. The system functioned perfectly. What's the issue? And before somebody chimes in and says, this is about accessibility, I think that's where the conversation just ends up muddled. Because I've seen people claiming that using complicated words is ableist. I don't agree. But accessibility matters. Real accessibility. Making books available matters. Formatting matters. Audiobooks matter. Screen readers. Large print editions. Hell, I appreciate a large print edition of a book every now and then. Those conversations are extremely important. But saying authors shouldn't use uncommon words isn't accessibility. That's something else entirely, because the solution already exists. The solution is looking up a word. That's it. Nobody failed here. Nothing went wrong. The reader encountered an unfamiliar word and they learnt what it meant. That's not a problem, that's a success story. Like I said, here's your trophy and a little certificate. And honestly, if we're talking about literacy at this point, let's talk about literacy rates, which have been declining for years now. I'm not convinced the answer is making books simpler and simpler and simpler. At some point, we're treating the symptom while ignoring the cause. People aren't struggling with literacy because fantasy authors occasionally use words like scrying. Come on. That's not the issue. The issue is far bigger. The issue is attention spans. The issue is people engaging with shorter and shorter forms of content. The issue that there is an entire, several generations now, growing up with algorithms fighting for every second of their attention. There's the kid with a tablet in their hand. Stuff like that, that's the problem. Removing the occasionally unfamiliar word from a novel isn't going to solve any of that. If anything, I'd argue it will probably make it worse. And I will also argue that reading is probably one of the few places where we should be looking and encountering things we don't know. And I'm not saying reading has to be educational all the time. I know someone will hear this and think I'm saying every book should be homework. That's not what I'm saying. Most of us read because we enjoy it. I read because I enjoy it, but enjoyment and learning aren't opposites. You can do both at the same time without even realising it. It's simple. I've learned countless words through novels. I've learned bits of history through books and novels. I've learned random facts about mythology, religion, folklore, science, culture through reading. And I've gone on 2 a.m. ADHD field deep dives into these. And it's not because I'm studying. It's because I'm reading. The learning happened naturally. And honestly, some of the books I remember the most vividly are the ones that challenged me. And I'm not saying they were difficult books at all. But because they trusted me, they assumed I was capable of figuring things out, sometimes through context, through curiosity, sometimes just Googling something. That's part of the experience. I also think this discussion says something important where publishing is kind of heading down. Because I don't think it's controversial to say a lot of modern fiction feels increasingly simplified. Not all of it, obviously there are exceptions. But there are plenty of books marketed as adult fiction that read exactly like young adult fiction. Shorter sentences, simpler prose, simpler poise, less descriptive language, more direct storytelling. Again, it's not every book, but it's a trend people have noticed. So when I see people demanding that books need to be even simpler, my immediate reaction is how much further do you want to go? Because we're already having constant conversations about reading slumps, attention spans, skimming, people skipping descriptions, people only reading dialogue, people wanting books to move faster. Now apparently, people don't want unfamiliar words either. At a certain point, you've got to ask, what are we trying to preserve here? Because books are one of the few places left where language still gets to be language, where words can be very specific, where they can be unusual and beautiful, where you can occasionally, the word will make you stop and think, that's not a flaw, that's one of the best things about reading. And maybe the wildest part about this entire conversation is the person who complained proved why none of it is actually a problem. They saw a word, they didn't know it, they looked it up, now they know it, mission accomplished. The book did exactly what books have been doing for thousands of years. It introduced somebody to something they didn't know. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I read in the first place. I'm Darth James. If you like this episode, consider joining my Patreon or becoming a channel member. We have podcasts and early access. And you can always leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, or hype this video. Everything is welcome. I will see you in the next one.